What's going on, people? So I've got a couple reviews to knock out today. Not as many as the last time I sat down, thankfully, because that, I tell you, that gets old after like the first, honestly, kind of after the first two, really. Either way, so down here, side of the box real quick, letting you see a little bit of all that stuff, right? Give you some kind of idea of what's happening here. So I did do a review of a very similar thing, and you'll see those pop up at some point later on, whenever it makes sense. But for right now, we're just going to talk about these right here, which is the Asics Gel-NYC 2055 in Glacier Grey and Dolphin Grey. I think I got all that right. I feel like I did, because I looked at this box a lot before this, trying to commit it to memory, whatever. I'm going to start with the bottom. Down there, what are you looking at? It's actually the same outsole as you saw on the last model, right? Which was the standard one. So in case you were curious, see that? Yeah. The same sort of thing going on down there. Told you this guy would come up sooner or later. So anyways, it looks pretty decent. I like the colors and all that stuff, right? It's not bad. It's a cool little blue down there. Anyways, let's move on and talk about this midsole for a second. So, up here, right? Same thing as you saw last time pretty much. Looks very similar, right? Again, I do like the way they slipped the gel in there because this purple is very cool in my opinion. But hey, maybe this shoe isn't for you, right? Color-wise or whatever. But you can at least still watch for the substance of the actual model, I suppose, right? Unless you got better things to do, which is highly likely. Anyways, other pictures, because I put a lot of pictures in these videos, right? So what you're looking at, you're kind of taking it all in, seeing some of the different layouts that they have on here compared to, well, not compared yet to the other things, but there's a lot of layers and stuff. Very similar approach to a lot of things that are in right now, right? But either way, we'll get in here. I'll give you some other shots or whatever so you can kind of help figure out if you really care to buy these or not. So we'll start down here, the toe box area, right? So on top, obviously, you got a whole lot of mesh going on up there. And then around that, it's going to be a whole lot of different leathers going on here. So the thing is, I'll say this right now. I don't know if it's just this one or what, but this toe box, like the top piece, the mesh piece, seems like super into getting creased, right? Because when I was doing this little on feet thing earlier, or looking at something earlier, I forget what it was, but I saw a lot more creasing going on than even on these, like the ones that I've actually worn, and these haven't left the apartment. So just throwing that out there, because some people care about stuff like that. Anyways, but it could have also just been my angle or something, I don't know. But either way, moving on past that, onto the siding and everything. What you're seeing on there is a lot of what you would expect from a style of shoe like this, right? So you got the Asics logo. It's got a silvery sort of thing, some kind of purplish in the middle or whatever you want to call that color. Nice little thick border of a darker gray, right? And then if you look past that, which you can't help but look past that, notice all this mesh in there, right? It's a good thing, right? Breathability, I'm a huge fan of it. So you got that going on. Pretty cool in my opinion, right? And so then if we step back just a little bit to the back third or so of this here shoe, what are you seeing back there? Basically what you saw in the front and everywhere else, right? Though this time you do have a little Asics logo and it's written out just in case people don't recognize that logo, right? So that's cool. Stitched on in there real nice and neat. And then one thing I'll mention now, you do have just a little bit of 3M going on the siding here. Not a whole lot, right? Just enough in this little line. So that's a nice little touch. But let's go ahead and move on past that. We'll look at the back real quick. So back there, what are you looking at? Well, what do you know? A lot of mesh looking stuff, right? It's a little stiffer than the other pieces because, it's the heel area, right? So it's got to have some sort of reinforcement going on. But otherwise, you still got the same blue and all that stuff wrapped around there. It's a nice presentation. I got no problems with it, right? Jumping back to the front real quick, finishing off the outside. So the lacing area, right? These laces here, at first, honestly, I thought they were white, but they're not. They're kind of they got a blue tint to them as if they were white and you washed them with something that you shouldn't have washed them with, and then the color just kind of bled in. That's kind of what I get out of these, right? But either way, I do like the way they came out. And it's going to be the standard flattish, roundish type of laces like you see on Air Max Pluses or even the previous NYC, right? Which I'll get to that in a second. I'll talk about some differences and such. Behind that, on the tongue, standard mesh. Nothing fancy about it, but it is nice feeling, right? As you get to the top, what do you have up there? Yeah, more mesh, right? It's kind of the thing that's going on here. So you got some blue in the middle, some white on the outside, or maybe it's not really white, it might be that glacial gray, whatever. And then in the middle, you have that Asics logo stitched in there again one more time, right? So all in all, it's looking like a pretty nice thing in my opinion, but we're about done with the outside, so let's just jump onto the inside. Real quick, backside of the tongue, also super plush, right? Adds into some of that comfort that you'll get. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And that's the same thing as you're going to see on the sock liner, in case you were curious about all that. And while we're in there, to finish things off, you got the Asics logo down there on that insole with Asics written out, very much like what you saw on the side of the shoe. So there you go, there's everything. Now, for people who might be curious about seeing these 2055s up against the standard NYC, well, this is your moment, people. So when you look from the side, right, you can kind of tell that a lot of these shoes, a lot of the looks between these shoes or whatever, is similar. Like if you saw them separately or whatever, you might think, oh, that reminds me of this other thing. But it's not like an exact replica or anything like that, obviously. Just close enough, right? And then when you look at the front piece, taking that in, right, not a whole lot has, again, it's not like a huge difference, but it's kind of like maybe like the 700s, like the Yeezys, you know, the first one or two. Not a huge difference, but you can tell it's close. So that's the same thing that's going on here, at least in my opinion. And then, of course, from the inside, looking in there, right, see what all is going on that way. And I'm not going to describe the differences to you. I feel like you can kind of break that down for yourself or whatever. But all in all, right, what it comes down to me, is how you particularly feel about them. Like maybe you're looking at one design versus the other and think, oh no, this one's way better. For me, I'll tell you right now, right, visually speaking, I'm kind of leaning towards this one. But whatever, let's talk about some personal thoughts and stuff. Personally, right, I saw these online. I thought, okay, well, the Gel-NYC standard one worked out pretty well. I was into those, so maybe the 2055 will be pretty good too. So let's go ahead and pick them up and see what's going on with that. Share some thoughts with the people so everybody else knows what they're getting into or whatever. And I saw this color, and it jumped out as being pretty nice overall. You know, I think it was the best one, and online it looked pretty good. So in person, I was hoping it would as well, and it does. Looks exactly like what the pictures made me think it would look like and everything. So I'm into that. It's a look that a lot of things are doing right now, which, you know, I think is probably, I would imagine would probably get old fairly soon here. But for right now, it's going all right. So I like a lot of the things that they've done here. I like that there's a lot of mesh in here. I do kind of wish that there was a little bit more suede or something on here, because, you know, the leathers can kind of add to some extra weight, maybe change how the shoe feels, but we'll talk about that in a second. But all in all, I mean, really, I've got no complaints about this model or anything like that, or the color selection. I mean, there's only like the 3 that I saw. They were all fine, but this was just the best one. I assume that maybe more colors will come around soon, so if the ones out there aren't for you, just keep your eye on them. Or maybe check the European sites, because often European sites get other colors that we don't. So, and I actually just saw Asics talking about that on their own Instagram thing. So there you go. But all in all, I think this is something that a lot of people could get into. But, you know, tell me how you feel if you care to. There's a comment section. Feel free to use it. But either way, so I'm going to move on past that. Talk about a little sizing and whatnot, because that's something that's somewhat important, I think, right? Sizing wise, I bought these in a 9.5, right? And I have a size 9.5 foot. The previous NYC was a size 9.5. I figured this should work out fine, and mostly it does, right? But I'll tell you this, honestly, like the shoe feels like a little short, you know what I'm saying? So down here in the front piece, like right in front of your toe and all that stuff, there's not a whole lot of room compared to, you know, the NYC was fine. This one, it's like right up there, you know, which could be a problem, you know? And so my uncle, right? I'm just going to bring this in there. I don't know how we got on this conversation, but the other day he's like, yeah, man, sometimes I buy half size up because, you know, I don't always cut my toenails. And I'm like, what? And he's the kind of guy where he'll say something like that and mean it, but you kind of hope it's a joke. But I bring that up because for people like him, you might want to go up half a size. See, there was a reason to bring that up, right? Anyways, so moving on past that, right? The whole length thing. they're still fairly narrow. You don't have a whole lot of room in that toolbox anyway. So just know that going into this. Otherwise, walking around on these, comfort-wise in the bottom, feels exactly like it felt on the NYC. It's an older model, right? Well, it's an older style. It's a new model, but it's an old style. So don't expect the comfort to amaze you. Well, okay, you can expect whatever you want to, right? It's your life. Live it how you want to. But you should keep your expectations grounded in reality for best results. Anyways, these feel really nice. I will say that. Got the Ortholite insoles and all going on. The mesh on and stuff on the upper piece. At least it's some nice breathability. I didn't quite care for these in some ways as much as I care for walking around in the standard NYC. But my other NYCs have different materials. It's more of a suede mesh combination. This is a lot of leather, so it felt a little more restricted in some ways. But I won't hold it against these. I think that's just a difference of materials for the most part. But all in all, this right here, walking around in these right about now, summer-wise, well, it's kind of over almost. I think a lot of people would be into it. So check them out. Don't check them out. Whatever. I've done my part, which is making this video. So there you go. I don't think I have anything else to say, so I'm just going to wrap it on up. From me to you, have a nice rest of your day or rest of your night, whatever it is, wherever you are. I'm going to talk about some Ultra Boost 5Xs now. So if that's a thing you're into, maybe that video will be of interest to you. Later, people.